Mm-hmm. That's your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they have a plan. We published a report about troops being sent to Odessa to reinforce Odessa, and they did that at a time when there was an increase in fighting. This was like a week ago. An increase in fighting in the Eastern Front, and so they are trying to get in line the possibility to totally put a blockade on Transnistria. It will depend on the ability of Romanian and Moldovan government to work together. So people looking at a map will see that Transnistria can like basically almost touch Odessa.
Yeah.
So basically, like without Novorossiya army having to take Mariupol and then seal off the access to the sea going all the way to Odessa and create that, people should consider basically like Transnistria to be like the Western Front of Novorossiya army. But there you have both Transnistrian forces, but you also have thousands of Russian forces.
Yeah, so the appointment of Saakashvili, of a well-known U.S. puppet and war criminal Mikhail Saakashvili, the appointment of him to the Odessa governor position. So, will he do something nasty like provocation against Transnistria or blockade against Transnistria? Because I don't think they can do something more serious than blockade. Because if they dare to attack Transnistria, there are a lot of Russian peacekeepers there, even more than there were Russian peacekeepers in South Ossetia and Abkhazia. So I don't think the junta has a death wish.
I think the junta does have a death wish.
Really?
Yes, I do. And I think, in fact, that personally, not me personally, but I think as a man, I think that Yatsenyuk is a person who is a masochist with a death wish. In fact, I think that he
not
fantasizes.
Poroshenko.
Not Poroshenko. No, Yatsenyuk is a man who personally has a psychosexual fetish of being killed. And he's trying to provoke a situation where he will be killed in some way. He will achieve some kind of long repressed orgasmic experience at the time that he's killed. And he's trying to basically take this trolling to global world proportions until someone can finally do what he wants to be done to him, which is to finish him off. In both senses of the term, you see. So that's really the situation, in fact. And I think the real mission of the United States is to try to get Army of Ukraine to disintegrate in a way. But you see, sometimes, look, when something disintegrates, it's necessary for a power to fill the vacuum. You can look, for example, at post-World War II, why Red Army was in Poland for a long period, why Red Army set up, why the Soviet Union set up the DDR in Germany, why, it's not like there was some, power there that would have been able to take over without being a puppet of the West at the time. So you can see it as a vacuum, a power vacuum that was going to be filled by somebody or the other. So the thing is that this is not an occupation when you have a power vacuum, because it actually creates instability on your front and creates opportunity for your opponent to fill the vacuum. So you actually have to fill the vacuum to preempt the filling of the vacuum by oppositional side. this is not the same thing as an occupation, either morally or legally, which is why it's bizarre, personally, for me to hear Latvian, Lithuanian, Polish, etc., talk about Soviet occupation following World War II.
Yeah.
So the thing is that it is a normal policy, and would be Russian policy historically, and they would be expected to do this to fill the vacuum created by a loss of central authority in Kiev. But that is what the U.S. is planning on having happen. So they want then to blame the collapse of Ukraine on Russia, which is what you said, and many people have said before. So yeah, so does that mean they're planning something for Transnistria? Well, that's like an option. The United States cannot really push this game to its conclusion without getting Russia to overcommit. If they don't get Russia to overcommit, if Russia does not appear positioned to fill this vacuum overtly,
yes,
then it's a problem for the U.S. They don't want to just keep putting billions and billions and billions and billions into this project. Yes, do they print money from thin air? Yes. But when they print money, does it create inflation of the dollar? Yes, it creates inflation of the dollar and the euro. So ultimately, it's not sustainable for the U.S. for the dollar to be used as a world reserve currency if it is inflated beyond recognition. It's so. That's my thinking on it. Really, the U.S. is trying to create a suicidal mission. But they don't. But it cannot. So Russia is okay. That appears to be the path that the U.S. is on, and Russia has been, doing its best to try to use timing and time on its side, and to prolong this until it can try to build consensus, try to build the framework of thinking in the minds of mass publics about the nature of this conflict. It takes time to educate people. It takes time to line up your commitments to make sure that, in the context of a broader escalation, that countries like India would remain neutral and that China would guarantee support, that Iran has, enough assets in Syria and in Lebanon to, maintain the Saudi-Israel alliance from being able to make a clear lineup to Turkey. So that's really and for Russians, it's also, trying to keep Turkey, hedged against itself, and to keep the project of the gas project going its way as a way to how should I say, compel it not to get stupider and stupider on Levantine politics, and to even have rapprochement with Iran over the gas pipeline. So that is all the whole picture, you see. So then, just to focus on Transnistria, do they have a plan? Well, yeah, they have a plan, but the key for, and we've said this before, is that the key for the Novorossiya Crimea model to work is that the uprisings that occur in Ukraine have the look and feel of indigenous uprisings. You can't, so there was a writer whose name escapes me, but we published them on Fort Roos, and they said basically that the way it would work in Odessa would be to have it appear, or to have it be a reality, if you catch my drift,
yes,
that a part of Ukrainian army had switched sides over to Odessa People's Republic. Saakashvili appears to have been placed there precisely to provoke the kind of reaction. He's very, very good for two reasons. The one is that he'll do anything that he's told, And number two, he's exactly so hated as to like provoke a premature reaction.
And
You
number
know?
three, he can eat more thighs than.
Oh yeah, put the link of him eating his thigh. If people may have heard of him recently, but may not know that he's like the famous, scaredy
Thigh
pants.
eater.
Yeah, he shat his pants and was eating his thigh on live TV, and it's ridiculous because he's got like the EU flag and the NATO flag and shit behind him. And Georgia was neither a member of NATO or EU, but these were like gargoyles that he thought were going to protect him from Russia. And
Yeah.
as we know, it didn't. In fact, I think Russia just passed or put something to the Duma to recognize Abkhazia and South Ossetia. So those are moving along, and those are like long-time frozen conflicts for a few years now, and it's similar to maybe what's happening in Novorossiya. Others have said that. That was not my position at the time, but others have said that, and it looks like they were right, and I wasn't. But what I do think is that really reaffirming my initial assessments is that the world doesn't stay the same, and it keeps changing. And while it was possible to have a frozen conflict 3 years ago, it's not possible today. Because the dollar's not in the same. It's like you have to include a little bit of dialectical thinking here, right? The only constant is change, and these internal contradictions are manifesting. It's not just like we can freeze the clock in time or apply the same tactics that worked 5 years ago or 10 years ago, right? So,
Right.
for example, another example of that is like all over in the Balkans and the Caucasus. United States is pushing on countries to make clear civilizational decisions that are anti-Russian. But just 5 or 10 years ago, it was okay for a government to be basically pro-American or pro-EU and have good relations with Russia. Today, it's not allowed. So I don't think that frozen conflicts will last very long. Maybe 6 months or 9 months, you're semi-frozen, but fighting is still happening. And that's what's happening in Donbass now. So.
Yeah, then I'm worried for Azerbaijan because Azerbaijan is trying to be friendly with EU and US, but and at the same time with Russia.
Right.
And I'm worried also about Lukashenko because he said it on multiple occasions that he wants to be friends not only with Russia but the EU and the US too.
Right.
So
Lukashenko is not the same case at all, and I've been really, really focused on this issue of Lukashenko. They had, that, what was that, the Blue Jeans Revolution in 2006 or 8 or something, protest Belarusians wearing blue jeans or something like that, and they tried to call it the jeans or Blue Jeans Revolution or something. And then, again, at the time that the conflict was raging in Syria, and at the beginning, and when Gaddafi was still putting on a good fight in Libya, we did see, again, a return to pressure on Belarus. And I think that I can say responsibly that Lukashenko is not an idiot and has no illusions and is a firm member of the Eurasian Union and is his role in appearing to be somewhat neutral or in making public statements that Belarus is sovereign and not part of Russia. I think these are all very well important timed strategic communications that are meant to communicate certain things to certain audiences within certain contexts. But and allowed, for example, for Minsk to be while we have the Minsk agreement. So Belarus was able to host the Minsk agreement, and he's also been something like the good cop of if Russia is bad cop, then Belarus is good cop, And we saw, Lukashenko give Poroshenko the kiss of death, at Minsk 2, like a boss. And he's a big guy. He's a charismatic guy.